Just throwing this out there now, I'm also wearing BB-8 socks as I film this video because, yes. Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment of my Disney Movie Marathon wrap-up. So this video, I am going to be ranking all of the new releases that came out during the span of my marathon. So in editing this video, I realized I completely forgot to include Ant-Man and the Wasp. I forgot that it came out in July of 2018, so it did come out during my marathon. So I didn't talk about it ever, but I will still place it somewhere in this list just so you can see my ranking of it. But yeah, I don't talk about it because I honestly completely forgot about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Okay, continuing now. My marathon ran from May 2018 until the end of December of 2019. I previously did a video that will be linked down below that was talking about all movies that I had never seen before prior to my marathon that I watched during my marathon that were just incredible. When I was coming up with that list, there was lots of times where I wanted to include these new releases because obviously I had never seen them prior to this marathon because they're brand new. But I figured instead of just adding them into that video, I would do an entire video of me ranking all the new releases that came out during this marathon. So that's what this video is. I did want to mention that even though I am ranking these movies, I actually really enjoyed all of them. There's actually only one I probably wouldn't really watch again unless it was like a special occasion that other people wanted to watch it, or again if I was having another Disney movie marathon I would watch it. But other than that, I really liked all of these movies. Like all my other videos in this wrap up, this is 100% my own opinion. There's a lot of talk about certain movies that I'm going to be talking about that probably a lot of people won't agree with me, and that's totally fine. We're all human. We're all allowed to like and dislike different things. I've said this in my other videos, and this is just my opinion on these movies. I won't be giving away any big plot points or anything, but I do think it's best for me to warn you in case I may spoil something, like if I just mention something, even if it's not a huge spoiler. So let's get started. So I'm going to be starting from the bottom and going to my favorite. There's only one movie on this list that I just did not totally enjoy, and that is obviously at the bottom of this list, and that movie was The Nutcracker and the Four Realms. This is the only movie that I just really wasn't a huge fan of out of all the new releases that came out. It was just kind of predictable. I kind of figured out exactly what was going on. I mean, it was a cute little spin on the Nutcracker story if you are really into the Nutcracker, but just wasn't my favorite. I can't really see myself watching it again unless I have a friend over who really wants to see it, who hasn't seen it, or we have, I don't know, a Nutcracker party. I don't know when I'd ever do something like that. Or again, if I was having another Disney movie marathon, I can't really see myself ever pulling it off the shelf to watch. I do love to watch Christmas movies around Christmas time, but there are way better Christmas movies out there. This just wasn't up there. Climbing the list next is the live action Dumbo that was released this year. This one actually surprised me. I was kind of worried about this movie. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of Tim Burton films. I do have lots of his movies because lots of them are Disney, and I do enjoy them, but they're just not my favorite. He definitely has his own sense of style, and it's just not my taste. Tim Burton did direct it, and just because of that, I was really worried it was going to be kind of weird, but it was pretty good actually. I really liked it. It was a completely different spin on the story of Dumbo. The cartoon, it tells a whole bunch of story, and then pretty much the end of the movie is where he actually learns that he can fly. This movie, it kind of takes a completely different spin. It's really early into the film that you actually learn that Dumbo can fly, and that is the huge like key factor in the plot of this movie. There's so much that goes on behind like the flying elephant and whatnot, so it's a different spin that I did enjoy about it. The only reason it's at like the bottom of my list is it just wasn't the most memorable movie of my marathon. There was a lot going on that I kind of wanted more out of. Like, I really wanted more Danny DeVito. Who doesn't want more Danny DeVito in the world? There was things that surprised me and at the same time things that didn't surprise me. There was one character that I was like, he's the bad guy, and he was the bad guy. But there was other characters that I thought, oh, this person's gonna be the bad guy, and they actually kind of saved the day. So there was little things like that. Like there was predictable things, and then there was things that I was like, wasn't expecting that to happen. Next on the list is the live action Lion King. I can't believe how low this movie was on my list, and I'm really disappointed by that. My thing with all these live action movies coming out, well, I say live action for the Lion King with like loose quotations because it was CGI. It's really hard, and I totally can see the struggles that Disney goes through because they make certain live action movies and everyone's like, they totally changed the plot, this is bullshit. But then there's movies like The Lion King where they literally didn't change a damn thing, and then everyone's upset that they didn't change a damn thing. So it's really this like battle of what do we do? Do we keep the plot or do we change the plot? Because I'm in a whole bunch of Disney groups on Facebook, and when certain movies that I'll talk about later came out this year, everyone was furious that the plot was changed. Everyone was so mad that they did this instead of doing what was in the animated. And then when The Lion King came out, everyone was so mad that it was so similar to the cartoon version. So it's like, there is no win here. You can't win with anything. And I'm really trying to step back from that sort of part of it. But in the end, I just really didn't love it as much as I was kind of hoping I would love it. For me, The Lion King is just such an iconic film. I really didn't think it needed to be redone. It's an amazing film just the way it is. They didn't need to put this live action spin to it. The Jungle Book was incredible, and I get that they were trying to do kind of like the same thing, but I just felt it didn't work. There was a lot of things that I was kind of like meh about. How Beyonce had her own song in it, and in the movie it was really only there for like 10 seconds, and now she's getting nominated for it. I'm like, excuse me, there were way better like original songs that came out. I honestly kind of feel like the only reason it's getting like attention is because it's Beyonce who did it, and I really think that's unfair because there's way better songs that came out this year that deserve the credit that they should have. Just because Beyonce did this song for 10 seconds of The Lion King, I feel like it shouldn't get as much credit as it has gotten. I just really feel like they could have done a lot more. One of my main things that I really just did not like about this movie, and I get, once again, they're trying to go for the whole live action thing, but just because of that, I felt it really lacked emotion. Here's a spoiler if you haven't seen any of the Lion Kings. If you haven't, you need to stop and go watch the Lion King right this very second. In the cartoon one, when Mufasa falls to his death and it shows Simba, you can just see the pure like heartbreak in his face when he has seen his father fall to his death. He is upset, he is terrified, he doesn't know what to do. It's just a heartbreaking moment. And then there's the whole scene where he finds Mufasa's body that he's just so distraught, he starts crying because father is laying here dead. And I feel like the live action one just completely lacked that emotion. Like they couldn't gain the emotion that they are able to gain through animation. So that was the big thing for me, was just, it just lacked a lot of things that I feel like they felt they couldn't do because they were trying to make it more realistic. So I feel like that they lost a lot of that by trying to do this whole new thing. Just because of that, it really kind of ruined it for me. So that is why The Lion King sits so far on my list. Next on my list is Solo, a Star Wars movie. So this was actually the very first movie of my marathon because I wanted to start my marathon with a Star Wars movie and then end it with a Star Wars movie. So I started with Solo, ended with Rise of Skywalker, as you all have seen. I really tried to separate the fact that this was my first movie from like ranking it, because the fact that this was my like #1 movie out of 400 movies is exciting alone, but I really tried to take away that excitement, and I think you can tell by the placement of it. But to be completely honest, this movie just wasn't that great in comparison to other Star Wars movies. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I mean, I know they tried to do a whole other thing where they completely separated from the like Jedi and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, that's what I go to see Star Wars for. I go go for the lightsaber fights. I did really enjoy seeing like the whole story of Han Solo, where he came from. I loved learning how he met Chewie. I'm blanking on his name. Whoever played Lando in this movie did a fantastic job. I loved the actor who played Lando. I think he did an incredible job, and that was like probably one of the best parts of this movie, was Lando and Han's like early relationship and how they became, I wouldn't say friends because they're not really friends in this movie, but how they met, how Han met Chewie. That was a whole great thing that I loved that they included. It was just sad, the whole like betrayal that happened between Han and someone I'm not going to mention because I don't want to give it away or anything, but there's just that whole betrayal, and I felt like everyone just kept betraying him and over and over and over again. And I mean, you obviously know going into it, if you've watched any other Star Wars movies, that obviously Han doesn't end up with a certain person because he's with Princess Leia in the trilogy. It's still sad, and it's still so sad to see his heart get broken and whatnot in the way that it did get broken, and I feel like I gave away quite a bit right there, so I apologize if you haven't seen Solo, but I mean, obviously he wasn't going to end up with the girl at the end of this movie because he's with Princess Leia. Anyway, moving on. Next on this list is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. I wasn't the hugest fan of the original Maleficent. I liked it. It was all right for me. Like, it's not my favorite movie. It's not my least favorite movie. And same with this movie. It's not my favorite on this list, but it's also not my least favorite, and I really don't have a lot to say about it. It was good. It wasn't great. I don't really feel the need for them to make any more Maleficent movies. That's quite enough in my opinion. And also that they changed the actor who played Prince Philip. I mean, I read that there was like issues with that actor. He couldn't make it because he was filming something else, but it was still sad because I liked him better. Next up is Mary Poppins Returns. Believe it or not, when I first started this list, Mary Poppins was a lot further down, but when I really started going through and adding my thoughts on everything, this movie actually just went further and further and further up my list until it sat where it sits today. And really, it just came down to the fact that Emily Blunt was phenomenal in that movie. She nailed the character of Mary Poppins. Even Julie Andrews has said like that there's no better person to play Mary Poppins other than Emily Blunt. Like, she did an incredible job. There's so much history behind the movie of Mary Poppins. Like, there's the movie, and then there's also like Saving Mr. Banks that came out however long ago, which like really delves into the story and the history of what it took to create this movie. And now there's this movie, which is just amazing. And there's so many like little things that I really love about the history of this movie, the history of Mary Poppins and Julie Andrews and P.L. Travers and Walt Disney. This movie was really, really well done. I really liked Emily Blunt. I really liked the characters who played older Jane and Michael, and Lin-Manuel Miranda was just also top-notch in this movie. Next is Captain Marvel. This one I don't have a lot to say about either. I really liked it. I thought it was really funny. I actually re-watched it on the plane home from Disneyland, and I forgot how silly it is and how hilarious it is. But I mean, really, all the Marvel movies have so much like funniness to them. Like, they're not just like serious all across the board. They have a lot of funny moments in them too. This was, I believe, the last Marvel movie to come out prior to Endgame. I have a few issues with Captain Marvel, but it literally has nothing to do with the movie. It has to do with what happened with Captain Marvel in Endgame, so I can't really compare Captain Marvel, like the movie Captain Marvel, to what happened with her in Endgame, but that's really my only issue with it, and again, that has nothing to do with that movie. Brie Larson did an incredible job, and I really felt it again when I rewatched it on the plane. I felt she was perfect in that role. Don't know if there's going to be anything new coming out with Captain Marvel, but if so, I look forward to seeing it. Next is Spider-Man Far From Home. I don't want to talk too much about this because there's not really a lot I can say about it that doesn't spoil Avengers Endgame. I put this one above Captain Marvel because kind of the same thing. It was a good movie, but it wasn't my absolute favorite. but I just really love all the Marvel movies a lot, and I think it just got one step ahead of Captain Marvel because I love Tom Holland. He is by far my favorite Spider-Man that has ever been in my lifetime, at least. I really liked it. It was really funny. I really liked how involved Happy was in this movie. Happy is probably my favorite character in like the Iron Man movie. They made one reference to Captain America, which obviously I love because I love Captain America, and that was like my favorite part of the movie. Okay, next is Frozen 2. I still actually haven't decided if I like this one better than the first one. I probably need to rewatch it again when it comes out on DVD, like watch 1 and then 2 right after another to really focus in and really come to the conclusion which one I like better. But even still, I really liked this movie. I was sitting in the theater biting on my knuckle because I was laughing so hard at certain parts of this movie. If you've seen this movie, you probably know which parts I'm talking about. There were some downsides to it, like there was an entire song that Olaf sang that I just was like, what was the point of that song? I honestly didn't really like Anna's song. I felt like it was a lot of like slow, and I was waiting for the build up and there was absolutely zero build up. So I wasn't a fan of Anna's song either. However, this movie has by far one of my favorite songs probably out of everything on this list, and it's probably not at all what you are thinking of. No, I am not talking about Into the Unknown. No, I am not talking about Show Yourself. The best song in this entire movie, probably one of my favorite new songs that has come out of all these movies, was Into the Woods that Kristoff sings. I heard a lot of reviews of people saying that they thought Kristoff's song was stupid. Okay, if you thought Kristoff's song was stupid, then you do not appreciate 80s music. 80s music was incredible. That is what Kristoff's song was. It was just an epic 80s love ballad, and it was incredible. Another issue I did have with this movie, and this may be spoiling it a little bit, so here's another spoiler warning. I just kind of felt like the end was kind of like pointless. The entire movie of Frozen was Anna wanting to have her sister again, and Elsa not being able to be there for her because she has this power that she doesn't know how to control. This movie kind of starts out with, hey, we can finally be sisters, we can finally be friends because I can control my crazy ice power. Just for Elsa to kind of be like, hey, bye, at the end of the movie. I just was kind of like, about that after I saw it. I was like, well, what was the point of that? Like, I thought they wanted to be sisters. I thought they wanted to be together and be able to play games and have a friendship and a sisterhood. No, it's kind of like, okay, what just happened? I guess not anymore. That was an issue I had with the movie, but other than that, I really liked Frozen 2. We are getting to the top few of my marathon. The next 4 I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to say too much about because I want to kind of get through these, and I know the last 3 I probably will ramble on forever and ever. Next up is Ralph Breaks the Internet. Loved this movie. It wasn't as good as the original Wreck-It Ralph, but it was still really good. It was still really silly. And if you haven't seen it, you gotta stay till after the credits. Make sure you, or not stay, because I guess it's not in theaters anymore. But if you do watch Ralph Breaks the Internet, make sure to watch till after the credits. It is well worth it. Next is Christopher Robin. This movie was so adorable. I loved every little thing about this movie. It was so good. The casting in it was on point. The fact that Jim Cummings was there to do the voice of Pooh Bear and Tigger was just incredible. Ewan McGregor as like grown-up Christopher Robin was amazing. This is funny because I did not know that they casted this actress in this movie until we saw it, and I lost my mind. But they casted the woman who I have the most giant girl crush on ever, and that is Haley Atwell. That movie was great. I loved it. I love the Winnie the Pooh movies. It was always like kind of like one of those things where it was like, and now what happens next when he's older? Also, this has nothing to do with this marathon, but I just want to throw this in there. I find it hilarious that Ewan McGregor came out this year. Well, I guess this movie came out in 2018, but in 2018 and 2019, he played like the older version of like a super iconic childhood role. If you know what I mean. Like, he played Christopher Robin, which everyone knows who Christopher Robin is, and then he played adult Danny Torrance from The Shining. Well done, Ewan McGregor. And next up is Toy Story 4. This movie hit me in the feels real hard. I was definitely one of those people who was like, we don't need a fourth Toy Story movie. Why are they making a fourth Toy Story movie? But this took the story, took it to a different level, and wrapped it up in a beautiful, perfect little bow. It was so well done, so good. Even though all of the movies have Woody has been the main character, this was really his chance to really shine. This was his movie. All the other three movies have really been Woody and Buzz, but this movie was honestly like 99% Woody with a little bit of Buzz thrown in there. I did not expect to cry during this movie, but I did. And to make matters worse, I actually had an eye infection when I went to see that movie. That movie really just got to me really hard. Okay, next on this list is The Incredibles 2. I loved this movie. They did such a great job of it. I know there was so much talk about how they took so long to like come out with this movie, like it took so long to make a sequel to The Incredibles, but holy smokes was this movie so worth it. It was so good. I really loved the like extra story that they gave to Mrs. Incredible. I thought that was so cool. I loved the scene with her bike. That was so well done. It was a tiny bit predictable. I did predict the villain in it. I really enjoyed the whole role reversal thing that they always speak about, how Mrs. Incredible is now like the bread earner of the family, that she's out doing the saving, and now Mr. Incredible is the one who has to stay home with the kids. And then there was the whole scene with Jack, which just made this movie even better. Okay, so I have 3 more left, and let me tell you, I had the hardest time trying to place these 3 movies on this list and decide where I wanted them to fall. It was very difficult, very, very difficult. I rewatched the ones that I could rewatch in order to like prepare myself and really think about how I wanted to place these movies. And honestly, I couldn't. I really thought about it and I switched them around on this list so many times. I'm having such a hard time placing these 3 movies. So I know this is kind of a cop-out on my part, but these 3 movies all get first place in my book. They were all amazing. I would rewatch them 7,000 times and never get bored. I'm going to talk about these 3 movies, but know that even though I'm talking about them in this particular order, this is not the order I would place them. All 3 of these movies are first place in my books. I know a lot of other people would disagree with me. There is so much hate for a couple of these movies, and I don't care. This is my opinion. If you don't like these movies for whatever reason, that is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, but I loved these movies. First one, Avengers Endgame. This movie was so good. This was exactly how I wanted. I mean, not exactly. I'm going to talk about spoilers. I apologize. From here to maybe the end of this video, I will be talking about spoilers. So here's your warning. I can't stop myself. Avengers Endgame was everything I wanted it to be, with the exception of the fact that Iron Man died. Even though I'm not a huge Iron Man fan, I am definitely Team Cap, but I still love Iron Man. He's still an Avenger. He's still one of the original Avengers, so I still love him, and it was still very sad for him to die. But I saw a post recently that really struck with me. Part of the photo was from Avengers Infinity War when Gamora dies, when Thanos sacrifices her, and it says he sacrificed his daughter for a better world for himself. And then it showed Iron Man and his daughter that he has in Endgame, and it says he sacrificed for a better world for his daughter. That was just very emotional for me. Thanos sacrificed and killed his daughter because he said he wanted a better world for everyone, but really it was really just kind of for himself, where Iron Man straight up sacrificed himself because he was doing all this for everyone and for his daughter and everything. So that was really sad. Like I said about all the other Marvel movies, there was a lot of funny parts, there was a lot of great parts. There were so many parts in this movie that really just stick with me, especially the very first time I saw this movie. When we went to see this movie in theaters, it came out the Thursday, we saw it the Saturday. It was still brand new, and most of the people in that theater probably, that was their first time seeing it as well. It was just the most like pepped up and excited theater I have been in a long time. So there's a few things that I want to talk about that happened when we saw this movie, like the theater and like just like the audience in general. Well, actually, first of all, this was just me. I don't really necessarily know if everyone was doing this, but there is the part in Endgame where Thanos is basically choking out Thor, and then you see Thor's hammer kind of wiggling, and then it flies up and smacks Thanos in the back of the head, so he like stumbles off of Thor. The hammer flies back, and you see that it's Cap who grabbed it and was wielding it, and that part just was amazing. First of all, I always wanted there to be something to do with the fact that Thor was able to wield the hammer and that he was worthy of it, because in Age of Ultron they kind of hint at it that he can, but they never really touch on it ever again. And so that was something I always really wanted, was to find out, is Cap worthy of the hammer? And so when that happened, I absolutely lost my mind. I was so excited because I am the biggest Captain America fan. I love Captain America. I love Chris Evans. And so when that happened, I was just insanely happy. Like, yes, he can wield the hammer. He is worthy. The next part that happened, where literally it was the most like audience participation I have ever seen in a theater ever. It was at the part in the film where kind of it was like the all hope is lost moment. Cap is standing there and he hears in his headset Falcon. He hears him and he's talking to him, and then he says, "On your left." And when you look to the left of Cap, you see Doctor Strange's kind of portal. I don't know what it's called, but his portal, T'Challa, Prince T'Challa, Black Panther, and his sister come out of it, and then all these other portals come, and literally all the Avengers are there. Everyone who was snapped away in Infinity Wars is there. They're all there. They're ready to fight. And then Cap says, "Avengers, assemble." Like, the entire theater was cheering and clapping, and it was just amazing. Like, it was so exciting to see everyone so excited for this movie and kind of like this wrap up and finale of the Marvel universe, even though it's not the end because there's movies coming out now, but it's kind of like the end of like this era of Marvel movies, because obviously Iron Man isn't coming back, Captain America isn't coming back. Like, yes, there's now the Black Widow movie coming out, and there's more TV shows and stuff, but this was kind of like the end of like this era, and also just like this huge plot line and story that came along with this movie. It was just so incredible to be a part of like that audience, and it was amazing. Next movie in my #1 spot is the live action Aladdin movie. Lots of people didn't like this movie, and probably even less people liked the movie that I'll talk about last, which you can probably figure out now because I'm on the last 2 movies. But anyway, I loved this movie. I actually saw it 3 times in theaters because I just loved it so much. I actually like haven't been so excited to see a movie for a second or third time since Star Wars The Force Awakens. I saw it twice, and then my friend texted me and was like, "This is a shot in the dark, but have you seen Aladdin already?" I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "Shoot, I was really hoping someone would go see it with me because I haven't seen it yet." I'm like, "I'll still go see it with you." So I ended up seeing it 3 times in theaters, and I loved it every single time. I actually listened to the album for this movie on repeat for probably 3 months. and listened to absolutely nothing else. It was actually funny. At one point I actually switched it up and started listening to other music, and Sam was worried I was sick because I wasn't listening to Aladdin anymore. I know that when this movie was like coming out, there was a lot of people concerned about Will Smith playing the genie, and there was like the whole preview where he was blue and everyone thought it was so weird and yada yada yada. And I mean, at the end of the day, no one can replace Robin Williams. He did an amazing job and no one can ever replicate that. However, I think Will Smith did an amazing job. Knew what he was going into, like knew that there was no way he could live up to such an iconic actor and such an iconic role, but he took it and he was his own character. Like he took bits and pieces of what Robin Williams had given him, switched it up and made it his own. And I really liked that about what he did with it. He was still silly like what Robin Williams did. He didn't try to be exactly what Robin Williams tried to do with this role, because no one would ever succeed at doing that. And I think it made the movie better. Like if he had tried to be like Robin Williams' genie, I would have honestly hated it. But he was his own character and he did an amazing job. The only character I kind of had an issue with was Jafar. He just wasn't evil enough for me. Like, I kind of felt like he was kind of a wimpy dude. Like, I was like, okay, sure, Jafar. He still did a good job. It just wasn't my favorite villain ever. I loved Mina Massoud in it. I thought he did incredible, and I think Naomi Scott did an incredible job. It probably won't get nominated, which pisses me off because, like I said before, certain freaking other more popular singer will probably get nominated for her 10 seconds of song in a movie. But I really wish that Naomi Scott would get nominated for Speechless for Best Original Song. Well, I guess not Naomi Scott in general, like the person who wrote the song and who composed the song. I wish they would get nominated over the other song that I mentioned earlier on in this video. The song was way better. It was way more memorable. Whenever I'm on these Facebook groups that I'm on, I constantly see people talking about the song Speechless and how like they're like, oh, I went through a really tough time in my life and blah 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 blah, and this song really kind of helped me to realize that I don't need to be silent, da 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 da. And there's absolutely nothing talking about the other song that I mentioned. Like, no one talks about that song because it just wasn't memorable. It was in the movie for 10 seconds. All the other songs are really well done too. Back somewhere in one of my marathon videos, there's a video of me and my cousin dancing to the Will Smith Never Had a Friend Like Me, which was just so much fun. And I really loved the version of A Whole New World by Mina Massoud and Naomi Scott. I think that was beautiful and very well done. Just the whole movie was amazing. I loved it. There was a few like timing things that people always complain about. Like, I know in One Jump Ahead there's like weird moments where like they're kind of moving slow, and it's like, I feel like that's just like something that the director chose to do, and I'm not a fan of it, but that's like, honestly, it's like whatever. My very last movie, like I said, these last three are all #1 for me. They were all so good. The only reason I'm talking about this one last as if it's my top one was because, I mean, really, this is the whole reason I had this marathon, and that is for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. I know there were so many people who didn't like this movie, and there are so many people who have so many issues with this movie. I get that there's issues, I get all the jazz and stuff and going ons about this movie. I don't care. I loved this movie so much. I thought it was so good. I tried to do the same thing that I did with Solo and try to take away the excitement of the fact that this was my very last movie of my marathon. I tried to take away that excitement and really just rank this movie, but the fact is I was still so excited for this Star Wars movie. Not even the fact that it was my last movie of my marathon, but just the fact alone that it was like the last Star Wars movie in this trilogy, and it was so good. I don't care what anyone says, I loved this movie so much. It was everything that I wanted the Star Wars finale to be. I thought they did a really good job considering Carrie Fisher passed away prior to this movie. I thought they did a really good job of still honoring her. Could only use archived footage of Carrie Fisher, and I think they did a really good job of what they could. I really like that they brought back Luke and Han Solo in this movie. I'm not gonna get into how, because obviously they're dead as well. Like, Han Solo died in Force Awakens and Luke Skywalker died in The Last Jedi. But also, not only are they in this movie, Obi-Wan is in this movie, Qui-Gon Jinn, Mace Windu, Yoda, to name a few. They're all in this movie and it's amazing. I love Daisy Ridley. I think she is an amazing actress. She did amazing. I love her as Rey. When I was in Disneyland, right before this movie came out, they have in Galaxy's Edge now that you can build a lightsaber. And I mean, I don't know if I would ever be able to do it because it's quite expensive. I would be pissed if I spent as much money as it is to build a cool custom lightsaber just for Rise of Skywalker to come out, and now Rey has this lightsaber, and I'd be pissed if I didn't choose that color because I love Rey. She is my favorite character. I love everything that happened with Rey and Kylo. I love everything that happened with Poe and Finn. I loved Chewie. I loved everything. I loved that Lando was brought back. This movie was just amazing. I loved it so much. I want to go see it again. I saw it 3 times. I loved this movie. I have already pre-ordered it and I can't wait for it to come out on DVD so that I can watch Avengers Endgame, Aladdin, and Rise of Skywalker and just like binge watch the best movies that I have seen in a really long time. I'm not just saying that the fact that these were part of my marathon. I genuinely loved these movies. I will like rewatch them over and over and over and over and over again. So anyway, that is my second last video of my Disney movie marathon wrap up. I have one more video to film and it has nothing really to do about the movies. It's just kind of like an overview. So that is my last like movie list that I wanted to speak about. I hope you guys really enjoyed this marathon with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is 100% my own opinion, so if you really didn't like any of these movies, that is fine. That is totally fine and we can still be friends. I loved all those movies so much and I kind of want to watch one right now. I can't watch Rise of Skywalker because I don't have it yet, but maybe we'll go see it tonight. No, I'm kidding, we won't. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and I will talk to you guys later. Bye everybody.